If you're over 60, the financial world loves to tell you what you've missed. You should have started earlier. You're behind. You'll need to work forever. But that's not the full story, because the top 10%, they don't always get there through massive incomes or risky bets. They get there by owning the right assets, quietly, intentionally, and often later in life. In this video, we'll walk through 15 real, achievable assets that can move you into the top 10% of financial security and let you stop working for money permanently. No gimmicks, no hype, just strategy, clarity, and the kind of peace most people never experience. So if you're ready to take back control, not just of your finances, but of your time, stay with us. Because the second half of your financial life might be the best chapter yet. Most people think about their home in terms of square footage, style, or neighborhood status. But if you're over 60 and looking to truly retire, a paid-off home isn't just a place to live, it's one of the most powerful financial assets you can own. Why? Because eliminating your biggest recurring expense isn't just about saving money, it's about regaining control. Let's start with the math. Housing is typically the largest line item in any household budget. Whether it's rent or a mortgage, housing often eats up 30% to 50% of income, even more in expensive cities. But what happens when you own your home outright? That entire expense disappears. Suddenly, every dollar you don't spend on rent or a mortgage becomes available for other purposes: healthcare, food, travel, or just peace of mind. And this isn't theoretical. The Social Security Administration reports that the average retiree receives about $1,800 per month. If you're still paying $1,200 in rent or a mortgage, that leaves little room for flexibility. But if your home is fully paid, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. You've created margin. And margin in retirement is everything. The benefits go far beyond monthly savings. A paid-off home acts as an inflation hedge. As prices rise, rents typically rise with them. But a homeowner who has paid off their mortgage is largely immune. Property taxes and maintenance may fluctuate, but they're a fraction of what rent increases can do to someone on a fixed income. In that sense, your home becomes a form of shelter, not just physically, but financially. There's also the psychological dividend. Financial stress is a silent killer, especially in later life. Knowing that no matter what happens in the market, your roof is secure. That gives you something money can't buy: peace of mind. The peace of knowing you'll never be priced out of your own home. The calm that comes from not having to negotiate leases, risk eviction, or face rising housing costs on a shrinking income. Some financial advisors argue that keeping a mortgage is smart if you can get a low interest rate and invest the difference. While that might make sense mathematically for someone 30 or 40, retirees don't need leverage. They need certainty. They need simplicity. The flexibility to not worry about markets or returns. Because when income is fixed, predictability becomes your best friend. Even better, a paid-off home can function as a safety net. Should an emergency arise, medical bills, family needs, or unexpected expenses, you have the option of tapping into your equity. Home equity lines of credit or reverse mortgages are far from ideal as primary strategies, but as backups they exist. That's not possible if you're renting or still buried under a mortgage. It's also a legacy asset. If properly maintained and passed on, a fully owned home can provide your children with a significant head start, either through direct inheritance or via the option to sell it and invest the proceeds. That alone can change a family's generational trajectory. So when you hear the term paid-off home, don't just think about debt-free living. Think about the layers of freedom it provides. Freedom from monthly costs, freedom from inflation, freedom from stress, and freedom to use your income elsewhere. It is, in every sense, the anti-rent machine, quietly compounding safety, control, and dignity in retirement. In the end, owning your home isn't just smart finance, it's smart aging. And for many, it's the first step toward entering the top 10%, not with flashy investments, but with quiet control over what matters most. Ask most people to define wealth, and they'll list big numbers, $1 million, 10 million, maybe more. But ask someone over 60 who has learned to live without financial fear, and you'll often hear something different. My portfolio pays me. That's the power of a modest dividend portfolio, not flashy, not risky, but quietly reliable. Dividend-paying stocks are often overlooked by younger investors who chase growth, hype, and fast returns. But for someone approaching or already in retirement, a consistent, inflation-beating stream of income is more valuable than theoretical appreciation because it isn't potential, it's predictable. And predictability is the foundation of a peaceful retirement. A dividend portfolio doesn't need to be large to be powerful. Let's say someone has $300,000 invested across a handful of high-quality dividend-paying stocks or ETFs with an average yield of 4%. That's $12,000 a year in passive income, $1,000 per month without selling a single share. Add that to Social Security or a pension, and you now have a financial structure that sustains itself. No drawdown, no panic selling during crashes, just income. Even better, many of the best dividend stocks aren't volatile. They're not meme stocks or moonshots. They're businesses like Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, or Coca-Cola, companies that have been paying and raising dividends for decades. They sell things people buy no matter what's happening in the economy. Soap, food, bandages, and because their business is predictable, their payouts often are too. In fact, some of these companies are called dividend aristocrats, firms that have increased their dividends every year for 25 plus consecutive years. Imagine that. Through dot-com crashes, recessions, pandemics, and inflation, they kept paying more each year. That kind of financial behavior doesn't just create wealth, it maintains it. There's a psychological element too. A dividend portfolio trains you to focus on income, not headlines. When markets drop, your attention isn't on the red numbers, it's on the dividend hitting your account. That changes how you behave. You stop chasing trends, you stop reacting emotionally, you start thinking like an owner, not a gambler. Now, building a good dividend portfolio takes discipline. You don't just pick the highest yielding stocks. Those are often risky or unstable. You look for payout consistency, strong balance sheets, and industries that are unlikely to be disrupted overnight. Diversification helps too, but not in the 20 random stocks sense. You want to spread your risk across sectors that complement each other. Consumer staples, healthcare, utilities, and maybe a little energy. Some retirees automate this entirely through dividend-focused ETFs like SCHD or VIG. These funds hold baskets of high-quality dividend companies, often with lower fees than active managers. They rebalance for you, and they keep you on track. It's not sexy, but it works. And here's the secret most never realize. A modest dividend portfolio, handled correctly, often outperforms the average person's attempt to time the market. While others are jumping in and out, trying to catch trends, the dividend investor gets paid to wait. They don't just hold assets, their assets hold them in retirement. That's what you want. You want your capital to be productive. You want your money to do the work, not you. So while the world keeps obsessing over growth stocks and crypto bubbles, the top 10% are often sitting quietly collecting their dividends, reinvesting when possible, and smiling through the noise. A modest dividend portfolio may not make headlines, but it will make income. And for someone over 60, income is freedom, predictable, quiet, reliable, exactly what retirement should be. There's a reason real estate has minted more millionaires than almost any other asset class. But for those over 60, the goal isn't to become a landlord tycoon, it's to generate quiet, reliable income without losing sleep. And that's where the magic of a fully owned, cash flowing rental property comes in. First, let's clarify. Not all real estate is a good idea. Buying a speculative condo in a declining tourist area, risky. Buying a rental with 80% leverage in a high interest environment, dangerous. But a modest duplex or single family rental in a stable, working class neighborhood, fully paid off, well maintained, and in demand, that's a different story entirely. That's not speculation. That's a bond with a roof. Imagine this. You own a small house outright, no mortgage, no partners. It rents for $1,400 per month. Property taxes and maintenance cost you $400. That's $1,000 a month in net income, not tied to the market, not dependent on interest rates, just cash, showing up on time, deposited straight into your account month after month. Even with modest rent increases, you're quietly outpacing inflation. And you're doing it without selling shares or drawing down your portfolio. But real estate has more than just income benefits. It has powerful tax advantages. Depreciation allows you to write off part of the building's value each year on paper, even as the actual property appreciates. That means you can often keep more of what you earn. And if you sell, you may qualify for lower long-term capital gains rates or 1031 exchanges to defer taxes entirely. There's also legacy value. A well-maintained rental can be passed to your children or sold for a lump sum. Unlike a stock account, it's something tangible, visible, useful. And tenants, if chosen well, aren't just paying you. They're maintaining your assets' utility value over time. Now, none of this means real estate is risk-free. It requires attention. You need good tenants. You need reserves for repairs. You need to understand local laws. And most importantly, you need to ask yourself one question. Can I sleep at night owning this? If the answer is no, if the idea of toilets breaking at 2 a.m. gives you heartburn, then the strategy may not be for you. But if you choose wisely, screen tenants carefully, keep the property simple, and stay fully unleveraged, it can be a powerful asset. Many retirees delegate management to local property managers. For 8-10% of monthly rent, they handle the headaches, and you keep the cash flow. Passive, not stressful. Some retirees even focus on Section 8 housing rentals, where government agencies pay the rent directly. These programs offer consistent income and long-term tenants, often with fewer turnover costs. Others buy homes near universities, hospitals, or military bases where rental demand remains strong, even during recessions. The key is to keep it boring. One property, one tenant, one contract. No renovations, no wild appreciation hopes, just rent reliability and time. And here's the thing most people overlook. Real estate isn't just an investment. It's insulation. When markets fall or dividends are cut, your property still pays. When inflation rises, rents follow. And when panic hits Wall Street, your tenant still needs a place to live and will keep paying to stay there. So if you're over 60 and seeking a stable income source, a small cash flowing property might be the bridge between portfolio withdrawals and peace of mind. Not because it's the fastest path to wealth, but because it's the slowest path to worry. If you can sleep at night, it may be the only asset that tucks you in. When people talk about assets, they mention stocks, real estate, gold, or maybe a small business. But very few mention one of the most powerful, underrated financial advantages: you can own zero debt. Not having a car payment, not having credit card balances, not owing a bank anything. In retirement, that's not just an advantage, it's an asset, and one that compounds peace of mind every single day. Let's begin with the obvious. Debt subtracts. It subtracts from your cash flow. It subtracts from your freedom, and If unmanaged, it subtracts from your future. While many financial influencers promote good debt versus bad debt, the truth for anyone over 60 is simple. All debt is a claim on your future income. And in retirement, future income becomes more fragile. Paying off all debt means that every dollar you receive from Social Security, dividends, annuities, or pensions belongs fully to you. Not to a bank, not to a credit agency, to you. Imagine two retirees with identical income. One has zero debt, the other is making mortgage payments, car payments, and juggling 2 credit cards. They may both technically be middle class, but their lifestyles are worlds apart. The debt-free retiree owns time. They don't worry when the market dips. They don't panic when prices rise. Their base cost of living is lower, and that's the ultimate inflation protection. Debt also limits your choices. When you owe money, you can't pause. You can't downsize easily. You can't take risks, shift locations, or help a loved one financially without weighing the pressure of repayment. Zero debt creates breathing room. It opens a margin between your income and your needs. And margin, not income, is what creates wealth. There's also an emotional dividend. Many retirees describe the moment they became debt-free as one of the most liberating days of their lives. There's something profoundly psychological about knowing no one is coming to collect from you ever again. No letters, no due dates, no fees, just silence, security, and control. Of course, some advisors will argue that carrying low-interest debt while investing your capital can produce better returns. That's true on paper. But personal finance isn't just math, it's psychology. And over the years, most people lose more to emotional stress, poor timing, or forced sales during downturns than they ever gain through spread investing. Zero debt removes pressure, and pressure is what causes panic selling, bad decisions, and sleepless nights. Consider this. In a volatile market, the person with no debt and a modest income is safer and often wealthier over time than the high earner with leveraged property, margin loans, and maxed out credit. The key is sustainability. Retirement isn't about impressing people with balance sheets. It's about designing a life you can sustain without fear. That means fewer bills, simpler needs, and fewer demands on your capital. Being debt-free also empowers generosity. Many retirees say their ability to help children or support causes came only after clearing their debts. With no repayments looming, their cash flow became flexible, available to support, invest, or protect others. Finally, debt freedom is legacy protection. If something happens to you, your family doesn't inherit your burden. They inherit your calm, your clarity, your discipline. So if you're over 60 and still juggling debt, it might be time to stop optimizing and start simplifying. The goal isn't to maximize numbers on a screen. The goal is to minimize stress and make every dollar you keep truly yours. Because zero debt may not look like a flashy asset, but in retirement, it just might be the most powerful one you can own. Some financial strategies require timing. Others demand deep research or emotional stamina. But low-cost index funds, they ask only one thing: patience. For people over 60, especially those looking to stay invested without playing games, index funds offer a rare combination: simplicity, diversity, and long-term power. They are quite literally the easiest asset you can own and one of the hardest to beat. Let's begin with what an index fund actually is. In plain terms, it's a basket of companies. When you buy one share of an index fund, like the S&P 500, BOVOO, or SPY, for example, you're buying a slice of the 500 largest companies in America all at once. That means you're not betting on one winner. You're owning the entire system. But the real magic of index funds is in the cost. Traditional mutual funds often charge high fees, sometimes over 1% per year, just to manage your money, low-cost index funds like those from Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab charge as little as 0.03%. That's pennies on every $1,000 you invest. Over a decade, that difference alone can amount to tens of thousands of dollars in savings. And what do you give up in return for those lower fees? Surprisingly little. In fact, most actively managed funds fail to beat the index over the long term. According to SPIVA, S&P's own research, over 90% of active funds underperform their benchmarks over 15-year periods. Translation: the low-cost index fund wins quietly and consistently. For retirees, that's exactly what you want. You don't want surprises. You don't want to pick stocks. You want exposure to the economy without the stress of watching earnings reports, CEO scandals, or media hype. You want growth that tracks history, not headlines. Another strength of index funds: instant diversification. Instead of owning one stock and hoping it doesn't collapse, you own hundreds or thousands. One company might fall, another might rise, but the average continues moving forward. That averaging effect is what gives index funds their resilience. They're designed to recover because they are the market. They're also tax efficient. Index funds tend to have low turnover, meaning they don't buy and sell frequently. That results in fewer taxable events, which is especially valuable if you're drawing income from taxable accounts. And here's something even more powerful: automation. You can set up automatic monthly contributions into index funds and never touch them. It removes emotion, it removes second guessing, and when markets dip, as they always do, you buy more shares at a discount. For retirees, even modest exposure to index funds keeps capital growing without demanding attention. A typical setup might include 40% in index funds, 40% in bonds, and 20% in cash or dividend assets. The index fund portion provides growth. The bonds offer stability. The rest gives flexibility. And the best part? You don't need to be rich to start. With as little as $50 a month, many platforms will let you begin building your portfolio, and over time, those small deposits grow into large financial cushions. Charlie Munger once said, the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. Index funds let you follow that rule quietly, without effort. So when you hear about hedge funds, crypto explosions, or short-term trading strategies, take a breath. And remember, the wealthiest people in the world often invest like tortoises: slow, steady, automatic. Low-cost index funds don't just make investing easy, they make staying wealthy easier. Most people over 60 worry about their money running out, but often it's not lifestyle expenses that drain a retirement account, it's health care. From surprise diagnoses to long-term care needs, medical expenses can transform a peaceful retirement into a financial crisis. And yet, most people don't plan for it. They assume Medicare will handle everything. It won't. This is why long-term healthcare preparedness isn't just about having insurance. It's about understanding the gaps, building buffers, and protecting your future independence. Let's begin with the basics. Medicare, even at its best, doesn't cover everything. It won't pay for extended nursing home stays. It doesn't cover assisted living. And many procedures, medications, or therapies fall into gray zones with out-of-pocket costs. This is where planning ahead becomes critical. First, understand the real costs. According to Genworth's annual study, the average monthly cost for a semi-private room in a nursing home in the U.S. exceeds $8,000. Assisted living averages around $4,500 per month, and home health aides often over $25 per hour. Multiply that over months or years, and the numbers can break even a well-built portfolio. Now, most retirees won't need full-time care, but the risk isn't zero. In fact, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services estimates that nearly 70% of people over 65 will need some form of long-term care. That statistic alone makes healthcare planning a non-negotiable asset. So what can you do? One option is long-term care insurance. These policies help cover the cost of assisted living, nursing care, or in-home support. The earlier you buy it, ideally in your late 50s or early 60s, the lower the premiums. But they can be expensive, and many come with strict conditions or caps. So read carefully. Another option is hybrid life insurance policies that include long-term care riders. These allow you to tap into your death benefit early if care is needed, offering flexibility without wasted premiums if you never use the care feature. Then there's the self-funding approach, setting aside a dedicated care reserve. This might mean keeping $100,000 to $300,000 in conservative investments or cash equivalents earmarked for medical events only. It's not efficient, but it's liquid and it gives peace of mind. But long-term healthcare preparedness isn't just about money. It's about paperwork. Having a living will, healthcare proxy, and medical power of attorney ensures your wishes are respected. It also prevents your family from facing chaotic decision-making under stress. It's also about location. Are you living in a place with access to hospitals, specialists, or quality care centers? Some retirees move to rural areas for cost reasons, only to discover that the nearest cardiologist is 90 minutes away. Others choose to relocate near adult children or major medical hubs for better access. And finally, it's about lifestyle. The biggest healthcare asset you control, your own daily habits, walking, eating well, staying engaged socially and mentally. These don't replace insurance, but they delay the need for it. Here's the hard truth. You can't prevent aging, but you can prevent surprise. Long-term healthcare preparedness isn't just for those in crisis. It's for anyone who values freedom. Because the day you lose control of your body or your care is the day money stops being about luxury and starts being about survival. So prepare early. Understand your risks. Build your buffers. Because the best retirement plans don't just think about income. They think about dignity. When most people think of retirement, they picture a full stop, no work, no schedule, just rest. But for many over 60, complete inactivity isn't appealing. It's not stimulating. And frankly, it's not always financially sustainable. That's where the idea of a profitable part-time venture becomes an unexpected asset. Not a job, not a hustle, but something better. A small, intentional, low-pressure stream of income, doing something you actually enjoy. Let's start with a basic truth. Your experience is worth something. Decades in the workforce teach you things most people will never learn from books. Whether you worked in finance, mechanics, healthcare, teaching, or customer service, you have institutional knowledge. And knowledge can be packaged, monetized, shared. One retiree might create a digital course on how to manage a team or run a local business. Another might offer consulting a few hours a week to younger professionals. Still another might freelance in a creative field like writing, photography, or web design, only taking on projects that are enjoyable or meaningful. This kind of venture isn't about earning a fortune. It's about earning enough to keep cash flowing in, avoid drawing from your savings too early, and keep your mind engaged. Even $500 to $1,000 a month can significantly extend the life of a retirement portfolio or fund travel, gifts, or health care expenses without touching core investments. There's also something powerful about optional work. When you're not working because you need the money, but because you enjoy the activity, your stress drops. Your satisfaction rises, you control the pace. Technology has made this easier than ever. Platforms like Etsy, Upwork, Teachable, Substack, Shopify, and YouTube allow anyone to start something with minimal startup costs and no physical location. Some retirees even run small YouTube channels around gardening, classic cars, or historical commentary, generating ad revenue, sponsorships, or memberships. And because the internet is 24/7, your time investment can be asynchronous. You work when you want, you post content or create products on your schedule, the business works in the background. Others take a local approach, renting out garage tools, starting a tiny plant nursery, restoring furniture, doing light bookkeeping or tax prep during the season. If it's slow, peaceful, and brings in a little income, it's not work. It's a cash positive hobby. The key is to keep things light. No high pressure, no debt, no business loans, no giant commitments. Think one person operation, one email inbox, one idea that brings satisfaction. And don't discount your network. Many retirees get their first client, customer, or audience member from someone they used to work with or someone in the community who simply knows they're trustworthy and skilled. Done right, this kind of venture offers more than money. It offers identity, purpose, a reason to get up. And in a world where retirement can sometimes feel like drifting, that's more valuable than most people admit. So if you're over 60, don't underestimate your value. Don't assume your working years are over just because your full-time job is. You might have one more project, a small one, on your terms that becomes an unexpected pillar of your financial independence. Because the best part-time ventures in retirement don't just bring in money, they bring back meaning on your schedule. In a world obsessed with investment returns, yield percentages, and compound growth, one simple asset gets ignored far too often: cash. More specifically, an emergency fund, not an investment, not a high-yield savings game, just money, liquid, available, and silent ready when life gets unpredictable. For people over 60, this kind of fund isn't a luxury, it's a necessity, because at this stage of life, time becomes more precious than risk. And the ability to sleep well at night isn't just about how much you earn, it's about how safe you feel. Let's define it clearly. An emergency fund is a pool of cash, or near cash, that you can access immediately for unplanned events. Not just medical bills, although those are high on the list. We're also talking about roof repairs, car breakdowns, adult children in crisis, or even a surprise tax bill. The general rule for working adults is 3 to 6 months of living expenses. But for retirees, the number shifts. You're not worried about job loss, you're worried about volatility. That means your emergency fund should be larger, often 9 to 12 months worth of essential spending. Why so much? Because when markets dip, you don't want to sell assets at a loss. An emergency fund gives you a buffer so your portfolio has time to recover. It acts like a personal insurance policy against panic. It also buys you time during high inflation periods or healthcare system delays. You don't need to scramble or choose between selling stocks and borrowing money. You have space, you have margin, you have options. Importantly, your emergency fund should not be in the stock market. It shouldn't be invested in the traditional sense. The goal is not return, it's accessibility. High yield savings accounts, money market funds, or treasury bills with short maturities all make good candidates. It should be separate, both mentally and physically, from your checking account, because if it's too easy to dip into, it's no longer an emergency fund. It becomes a convenience fund, and over time it disappears. Some retirees divide their emergency funds into 2 buckets: a small, instantly accessible amount in checking or savings, a larger 3 to 6 month reserve in slightly higher yield instruments like short-term CDs or money market funds. This structure keeps temptation low while still protecting you against serious disruptions. But an emergency fund is more than numbers. It's emotional insurance. When you know, without a doubt, that you can cover 12 months of bills without touching your investments, you sleep differently. You think more clearly. You don't react to headlines, and you're never forced to make financial decisions under pressure. That emotional buffer is worth just as much as the money itself. It also allows you to be generous, to help family respond to community needs or seize opportunities without endangering your base. Most importantly, it protects your long-term plan, because the number one killer of retirement portfolios isn't the market, it's withdrawals made during downturns. Your emergency fund prevents that. It preserves your principal when it matters most. So if you're building your retirement blueprint, treat your emergency fund not as a safety net, but as a silent partner. It doesn't make noise, it doesn't get attention, but in the moments that matter, it shows up. And that's what real wealth looks like. Not flash, not drama, just quiet security. We don't often list peace of mind on balance sheets. It doesn't generate dividends. It can't be traded. There's no ticker symbol for tranquility. And yet, for those over 60, mental peace may be the most valuable asset of all. Because in retirement, wealth isn't just measured in dollars, it's measured in how calmly you can live your days, how clearly you sleep, how slowly you breathe when the world turns chaotic. Many people spend a lifetime accumulating financial assets, but never pause to protect their emotional ones. They monitor the stock market, but ignore their stress. They chase higher returns while sacrificing their health, relationships, and joy. Mental peace changes that equation. It starts with clarity, knowing what you own, why you own it, not because an advisor said so, but because it fits your life. A simple financial setup, maybe one bank, 2 investment accounts, 3 predictable income sources, can reduce 90% of financial anxiety. The next layer is boundaries. News cycles, market noise, and constant alerts hijack the nervous system. So you tune them out, not because you don't care, but because you've learned what matters. Peace comes not from knowing everything, but from trusting your plan enough to ignore most of it. Another ingredient? Simplicity. Decluttered schedules, decluttered homes, decluttered finances. Complexity creates friction. Simplicity creates flow. Many wealthy retirees live in smaller homes, use fewer devices, and own fewer things because they know what stuff really costs. Attention. Then comes relationships. Your emotional assets rise or fall with the people around you. Toxic connections drain you. Honest ones restore you. So protect your circle. Choose wisely. Spend time with people who respect your time and energy. Spirituality also plays a role. Whether through faith, meditation, nature, or philosophy, a deeper anchor often replaces the need to control everything. When you stop trying to predict the future and start preparing to meet it calmly, your perspective shifts. And finally, health, because the brain is not separate from the body. Sleep, walking, nutrition, and silence all compound into better cognitive function and clearer judgment. A peaceful mind is usually attached to a well-cared-for body. So how do you build this invisible asset? Start by subtracting. What do you subscribe to that adds no value? What commitments drain your time but leave you anxious? What financial behaviors cause stress, even if they're smart on paper? Then add in rhythms. A quiet walk each morning, a regular check-in with your budget once a month, not every day, a no-news day, once a week, one recurring conversation with a spouse or friend about what matters, not just what's urgent. Mental peace isn't a one-time achievement. It's a posture, a practice, a choice. And in retirement, it's often the one thing that allows your other assets to actually serve you. Because what's the point of $1 million portfolio if you're still anxious every night? What's the value of a perfectly diversified account if you're emotionally exhausted by managing it? Mental peace is the asset that protects your time, your attention, your joy. It may never show up on a spreadsheet, but it shows up in every conversation, every breath, every decision, and that makes it priceless. One of the greatest financial fears for people over 60 isn't a stock market crash. It's running out of money. Living longer is a gift, but it also creates a new kind of risk, longevity risk. The longer you live, the more pressure you place on your retirement savings. That's why guaranteed income streams like pensions or annuities are so powerful. They turn your nest egg into something simple, a paycheck you can't outlive. Let's start with pensions. Though fewer employers offer them today, some people still retire with traditional defined benefit plans, especially public servants, educators, or longtime corporate employees. Pension offers a fixed monthly income for life, often indexed for inflation, based on your years of service and final salary. Pensions are extremely valuable because they remove uncertainty. You don't have to wonder how much you can withdraw each year. You don't have to time the market. You just receive steady income month after month, no matter what happens in the stock market. But what if you don't have a pension? That's where annuities come in. An annuity is a contract with an insurance company. You give them a lump sum of money, and in return, they promise to send you income. This income can be for a set period or for life. There are many types of annuities: immediate, deferred, fixed, variable, indexed. But for simplicity and security, most retirees look at immediate or deferred income annuities. These are designed to do one thing well: generate predictable lifetime cash flow. Let's say you're 65. You invest $100,000 into a single premium immediate annuity. Depending on your age, gender, and interest rates, you might receive $500 to $700 per month for the rest of your life. That's not a return. That's guaranteed income, just like a pension. Some annuities even offer inflation adjustments or joint life options for spouses. Others include features like cash refunds if you die early or long-term care riders. But the value lies in their simplicity. You eliminate sequence risk, market stress, and withdrawal anxiety. Of course, annuities come with trade-offs. You're giving up liquidity and often control. You can't pull the money out later if you change your mind. And not all annuities are created equal. Some have high fees or confusing structures. That's why it's essential to buy from a reputable provider and read every detail. Still, for many retirees, having just one annuity in their portfolio creates emotional security. It covers baseline expenses like housing, groceries, and insurance, allowing other assets to stay invested longer. It also protects you from poor decision making during volatile times. Because if you know your basic needs are covered for life, you don't panic when markets drop. You don't overspend during bull markets. You just live on a stable foundation. Some people combine strategies. They use Social Security, a small pension, and an annuity to create a floor of guaranteed income. Everything else, investments, real estate, side ventures, is built on top. The goal isn't to eliminate risk completely. It's to eliminate the kind of risk that keeps you up at night. So whether it's a pension you earned or an annuity you purchased, this asset offers more than money. It offers peace, predictability, and confidence that no matter how long you live, your income lives with you. Because retirement isn't just about surviving. It's about knowing you'll be okay for as long as you're here. In financial planning, we often talk about income, investments, and inflation. But there's one variable that quietly determines your long-term wealth, and it's not on a spreadsheet. It's who you build your life with. For anyone over 60, especially in retirement or approaching it, having a frugal partner might be one of the most powerful financial assets you can possess. Why? Because no matter how well you plan, your financial outcomes are deeply affected by shared habits, shared goals, and shared decisions. A frugal partner doesn't mean someone who's cheap. It means someone who values enough over more, someone who finds joy in simplicity, who doesn't chase status, and who prefers peace over pressure. This matters more than people realize. In retirement, You're no longer growing your wealth with a salary. You're managing what you already have. And how slowly or quickly that nest egg drains often comes down to lifestyle decisions made at the kitchen table, not in the stock market. Two people aligned in modest living can stretch a portfolio 10 years longer than a couple, constantly pushing lifestyle upgrades. A frugal partner thinks long term. They're patient. They understand the power of compounding, not just in dollars, but in decisions. It's not just about spending less. It's about spending with intention, choosing quality over quantity, choosing experiences over things, knowing that the thrill of new wears off, but the weight of debt doesn't. Frugality as a shared value creates freedom. It means you don't need to keep up. It means you can travel off-season, shop secondhand, grow your own food, or retire in a smaller town and enjoy it. A frugal partner supports decisions like downsizing when others would resist it. They see the trade-off: smaller space, bigger margin of safety, less clutter, more clarity, fewer luxuries, more security. And perhaps most importantly, they lower your stress. You're not constantly having the "we can't afford this" argument. You're not hiding purchases. You're not drowning in credit card bills. You're on the same page. That mental alignment spills over into other areas. Shared goals feel achievable. Retirement planning becomes smoother. Emergencies feel manageable. You sleep better at night. Now, it's not about perfection. Even frugal partners spend, but they do it with shared intent. They may splurge occasionally, but not habitually. They delay gratification for a better payoff later. This is especially vital when medical costs, family support, or unexpected repairs appear. A frugal partner isn't shaken. They adapt, they plan, they prioritize, because they're wired for resilience. And if you're still seeking a partner later in life, this principle still matters. You don't need to match income, but values must align, because even the highest income can be spent away by a partner who doesn't believe in limits. Frugality isn't about restriction. It's about liberation, the freedom to live below your means and sleep soundly. So in your later years, don't just evaluate your portfolio. Evaluate the energy of the person beside you. Do they calm you or stress you? Do they chase or appreciate? Because the right partner doesn't just love you. They protect the life you're building together. And that's an asset you can't price. We spend our entire lives earning, saving, and building wealth, yet many people leave their legacy to chance. That's why a simple will and estate plan is not just a legal document. It's a final act of love. And for anyone over 60, it's one of the most important and most overlooked financial assets. Let's be clear. You don't need to be ultra wealthy to need a will. If you have a bank account, a house, or even a favorite heirloom, you have an estate. And without a will, your family will have to navigate a confusing legal process while grieving, often leading to delays, conflict, or outcomes you never intended. A will is the foundation. It names who gets what, how assets are distributed, and who handles your affairs. But a proper estate plan goes further. It includes medical directives, power of attorney, beneficiary designations, and in some cases, trusts. These aren't just legal boxes to check. They're decision tools designed to reduce pain and confusion during difficult moments. A medical directive, for example, lets you choose how you want to be treated if you can't speak for yourself. Who will make healthcare decisions? What treatments do you want or want to avoid? Answering these questions now prevents loved ones from guessing later. A financial power of attorney ensures someone you trust can manage your finances if you're incapacitated. Without it, banks and institutions may freeze accounts or refuse urgent transactions. It's a simple document, but it can prevent chaos. Then there are beneficiary forms. Many people don't realize that accounts like IRAs, life insurance, and 401 pass directly to named beneficiaries, regardless of your will. That's why reviewing those designations regularly is crucial. Outdated names can cause money to go to the wrong person. If your situation is more complex, blended families, a special needs child, or significant assets, a trust may be useful. Trusts allow you to control when and how money is distributed. They can reduce estate taxes, avoid probate, and protect heirs from poor decisions or outside threats. But complexity isn't the goal. Clarity is. Your estate plan should fit on a few pages, be understood by your family, and be stored in a place they can easily access. Too many people put it off thinking it's morbid or time-consuming. But in reality, most plans can be created in a few hours with the help of a qualified attorney or online platform. The benefit isn't just legal, it's emotional. Your family won't have to guess, argue, or navigate messy court battles. They'll know your wishes. They'll know you planned ahead, and that will offer peace at a moment when they need it most. Think of it as insurance for your values. A final message to the people you care about most, and it's not just about money. You can use your will to leave personal letters, assign guardianship for pets, donate to causes, or pass on family stories. You can define your legacy, not just your assets. So if you're over 60, don't wait for the perfect moment. Set a date, get it done, review it every few years or after major life events, because an estate plan isn't about dying. It's about protecting the people who will live on and helping them do so with clarity and love. One of the most underestimated assets in retirement isn't money, it's rhythm. In your working years, income comes in on a schedule, paychecks every 2 weeks, bonuses annually, and that rhythm naturally disciplines spending. But in retirement, the rhythm changes. There's no paycheck, just a pool of money and decisions. And that's where people over 60 often fall into a dangerous trap: unstructured spending. Enter the idea of time-controlled expenses, a strategic behavioral tool to manage cash flow, reduce waste, and protect your nest egg. What does this mean? Time-controlled expenses are the practice of setting spending windows, limits, or cadences that align with your retirement plan, not just your desires. They're not about restriction. They're about designing a sustainable rhythm that keeps you in control. Here's how it works. Instead of reviewing expenses yearly when surprises have already happened, retirees break spending into time-box cycles, monthly, quarterly, or even seasonal. Each cycle gets its own permission budget. Once that window closes, no rollovers. This mirrors the concept of intermittent discipline, short, clear rules that reduce decision fatigue. For example, instead of saying, let's travel whenever we want, you define one major trip every 18 months, one small weekend trip every 3 months, a fixed amount per year, and spontaneous experiences. That structure gives you freedom within guardrails. Another example, discretionary categories like dining out, hobbies, or gifts. Create a monthly budget and a set time to review it. This lets you evaluate patterns without judgment and realign quickly if needed. More advanced, align expenses with investment withdrawals. If you're pulling 4% annually from a portfolio, break that into monthly or quarterly distributions. This creates a natural cap on lifestyle creep, the subtle rise in spending as you feel flush. Time-controlled expenses also help manage psychological triggers. Many retirees feel anxiety after large purchases, even when affordable. Why? Because they lack the rhythm. A structure eliminates that uncertainty. You know what's okay and what isn't. This isn't about living on a strict budget. It's about aligning time, money, and energy. Certain periods of the year are naturally more expensive: holidays, summer, family visits. Plan around them, not in reaction to them. Set aside funds in advance, like a personal sinking fund, and spend guilt-free when the time comes. Another tip, have cooling off rules. For any non-essential purchase over $300, wait 72 hours. This prevents impulse buys, especially when you're emotionally charged or bored. Also, bundle big decisions. Instead of upgrading the car, the appliances, and the tech all in 1 year, rotate major expenses on a 3 to 5 year cycle. This keeps your spending predictable and your reserves healthy. In essence, time-controlled expenses are the opposite of budget micromanagement. They don't require daily tracking, just intentional rhythms. You're not trying to pinch pennies. You're trying to buy time. And nothing preserves time like consistency. Retirees who follow this model often feel calmer, more in control, and more confident because they know where their money is going and when. In the end, wealth isn't just what you own. It's how predictably you can live without worry. Time-controlled expenses make that possible. If you made it this far, you're already ahead of most people. Remember, building lasting wealth after 60 isn't about luck. It's about clarity, calm decisions, and a few key assets that work quietly in your favor. So take your time, rewatch if needed. You don't have to do everything at once. Just start with one move that brings you peace. And if this helped you, do one more thing. Subscribe for more calm, fact-based financial guides built just for your stage of life. Tap the bell so you never miss a step. And tell us in the comments which of these assets are already part of your life. Because yes, it's possible, yes, it's achievable, and yes, it's your turn. Thanks for watching.